The situation was spiraling, and I was on the edge of losing my grip. Here I was, a 32-year-old man, married to the woman I thought I knew, Angela, for 3 years. She was 29, and we had been dating for 2 years before we tied the knot. We were expecting our first child together, at least, I thought we were. But something was wrong. Something was off. Angela was 7 months pregnant, and I had started noticing things. Little signs, subtle shifts, but enough to make my stomach churn with suspicion. Was my wife cheating on me? And worse, could my stepbrother, Jonathan, be the father? Jonathan and I grew up together. Our parents married when we were teenagers, and since then, we'd been close. He often visited our house, and I had always trusted him. But over the past few months, things had changed. I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that Angela and Jonathan were spending too much time together. It wasn't just casual conversations anymore, they seemed to be whispering, pausing abruptly when I entered the room, exchanging glances that were far too intimate for siblings-in-law. Then there was the day I came home early from work. The house was eerily quiet, but I heard laughter coming from our bedroom. I walked in and froze. Angela and Jonathan were sitting on the bed, their faces flushed, their body language tense. When they saw me, they quickly tried to cover it up, claiming they were just talking about baby stuff. But I could sense the discomfort, the unspoken truth hanging in the air. Something wasn't right. It didn't stop there. Angela's phone became a fortress. She kept it face down whenever it was near her, and if she wasn't using it, she took it with her, even to the bathroom. When I casually asked her about it, she snapped, accusing me of not trusting her. The more I tried to dismiss the thought, the more it haunted me. What if the baby wasn't mine? Then came the baby shower. A day that should have been filled with joy turned into a minefield of suspicion. Jonathan was there, of course, but what caught my attention was how attentive he was to Angela. Always making sure she was comfortable, fetching her drinks, asking if she needed anything. The whole thing felt like a performance, like he was trying a little too hard. That night, after everyone had left and Jonathan made his exit for some errands, I knew it was time. It was now or never. I couldn't keep living with this doubt. I decided to confront Angela. But instead of accusing her directly, I thought I'd ask for a paternity test. That would reveal her true feelings, right? I found her cleaning up in the kitchen, the soft glow of the baby shower still lingering in the air. "Hey, Angela, can we talk for a minute?" I asked, my voice steady, though my heart raced. She smiled, her eyes still gleaming from the celebration. "Sure, what's up?" I took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about this for a while now. I think we should get a paternity test for the baby." Her smile vanished instantly. Her eyes widened in shock, quickly morphing into anger. "What? Why would you want that?" I kept my voice calm, though my insides were screaming. "I just think it's a good idea. You know, for medical reasons and stuff." Angela's face turned bright red, her emotions flaring. "Medical reasons? Are you serious? You think I cheated on you, don't you?" I tried to keep my cool. "No, it's not that. I just want to be sure, Angela. It's a simple test. If I'm the father, then what's the issue?" "The issue," she snapped, "is that you don't trust me. I can't believe you're asking me this after everything we've been through. After all the love and support I've given you, you have the audacity to question if this is your child?" I felt my chest tighten, the weight of her words crashing down on me. I wasn't accusing her. I just wanted peace of mind. "Angela, please. Calm down. It's not healthy for the baby for you to get so upset. I'm not accusing you of anything. I just want to do the test." Her eyes were blazing. "No. Absolutely not. I refuse to take a paternity test. This is your child. And how dare you even suggest otherwise?" With that, she stormed out of the kitchen, leaving me standing there, feeling more suspicious than ever. Her reaction confirmed my worst fears. Something was wrong. This wasn't just about the baby. This was about trust. Or the lack of it. That night, I barely slept. My mind raced with possibilities, each more painful than the last. The next morning, I knew what I had to do. I reached out to Angela's parents, hoping they could provide some clarity. They had always been kind to me, and I wondered if they might see things I couldn't. I called Angela's mom, Linda, and asked to meet with her and her husband, Robert. They agreed, and I went to their house while Angela was at her prenatal yoga class. When I arrived, I could sense the concern in their eyes even before they spoke. We sat down in the living room, and I began to explain. I don't know how to say this, but I have reason to believe Angela might be cheating on me with Jonathan. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Linda and Robert exchanged a knowing look, one that made my heart sink. I continued, telling them about the paternity test conversation and Angela's violent reaction. Robert sighed, looking weary. Son, we were afraid something like this might happen. Confused, I asked, what do you mean? Linda placed a hand on mine. We love Angela, but she has a history. A history of being unfaithful. The words hit me like a slap to the face. What? She's cheated before? Why didn't anyone tell me this before we got married? Robert shook his head. We hoped she had changed. When she met you, she seemed different. More mature. We thought maybe she had finally outgrown her old habits. My mind was spinning. And you think she's cheating on me again? Linda nodded sadly. We've noticed signs. The way she talks about Jonathan. The secretive phone calls. We were hoping we were wrong. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. So what now? What was I supposed to do? Robert leaned forward, determination in his eyes. We're with you on this, son. You have the right to know if that child is yours. We'll talk to Angela. Try to make her see reason. And if she still refuses, there are other ways to get a paternity test done after the baby is born. The weight of their words was comforting, but it didn't erase the deep sense of betrayal gnawing at me. As I left their house, I felt torn, grateful for their support, yet devastated by the truth they had revealed about Angela. When I returned home, Angela was there, sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying. The moment I walked in, she snapped. I can't believe you went to my parents behind my back. I sat across from her, my heart heavy. Angela, we need to talk about this. Your parents told me about your past. About your history with infidelity. Her face crumpled. That was in the past, she whispered. I've changed. I love you. If you love me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, then why won't you agree to the paternity test? If I'm the father, as you say, then the test will prove it. She burst into tears, her voice trembling. Because it's insulting. It shows you don't trust me. And involving my parents, how could you? I'm not accusing you of anything, I said, my voice breaking. But now, with you refusing the paternity test, what am I supposed to think? She was sobbing now, barely able to speak. I thought we were happy. I thought you loved me. I do love you, Angela, I said softly, but I need to know the truth. Angela didn't answer. She just shook her head, tears streaming down her face, and that silence felt like the heaviest burden I'd ever carried. I'm going to stay at a hotel for a few days, I said, standing up. I need some time to think. Please don't go, she begged, her voice cracking with emotion, but I knew I needed space. I needed to clear my head and figure out what to do next. As I packed my bag, I felt like my whole world was crumbling around me. Over the next few days, I stayed at a nearby hotel, trying to make sense of everything. Angela called me repeatedly, her messages alternating between apologies and angry accusations, but I couldn't find peace. The truth felt like a distant dream, and I wasn't sure what I would find when I finally faced it. The following week after I left our home was the hardest time I had ever faced. Each day dragged on, stretching into what felt like endless hours, as I wrestled with the haunting possibility that everything I had believed about my life with Angela, my marriage, my future, might have been a lie. My hotel room, meant to be a temporary retreat, felt more like a cage. The silence around me only amplified the weight of my doubts, turning every thought into a wave of anxiety that crashed over me relentlessly. On the 7th day of my self-imposed exile, my phone rang. I saw Angela's name flashing on the screen and, for a moment, I froze. My heart pounded, a mix of hope and dread flooding my chest. Was this the moment of clarity I had been waiting for, or was it another cruel twist? I answered the call, trying to keep my voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside me. "Hello?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper, bracing myself for whatever would come next. "I can't do this anymore," Angela's voice came through, shaky, emotional, and raw. There was something about the way she spoke that made me sit up straight, something I hadn't heard before. My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to make sense of what she was saying. There was a painful silence on the other end. I could hear her trying to compose herself, but her voice finally cracked. "If you don't believe me, if you don't trust me, then I don't want to keep this baby." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt the air leave my lungs. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. What was she saying? What are you saying?" She snapped back, her words sharp and bitter. "If you're going to doubt me, and question whether this is your child, maybe it's better if there is no child at all." A surge of anger flooded me, hot, sudden, and overwhelming. My mind raced. "Are you threatening our unborn child just because I asked for a paternity test?" I yelled, my voice rising with every word. "Do you realize what you're saying?" "I'm saying I can't live like this," she shouted back, the emotion clear in her voice. "I can't carry this child knowing its father doesn't even believe it's his." I tried to stay calm, but the words just spilled out. "All you have to do is take the test. If I'm the father, like you claim, then what's the problem?" "The problem is that you don't trust me," Angela cried. "The problem is that you've destroyed everything we had." Before I could respond, she hung up, leaving me stunned. My mind reeled from the conversation. The Angela I knew would never have even considered threatening our child like that. It was manipulation, pure and simple. And it only fueled my suspicions. With shaking hands, I called Angela's parents. Linda answered on the 3rd ring, her warm voice immediately contrasting with the coldness inside me. "Hello," she said. "Linda, it's me," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Something's happened. I need to talk to you and Robert. Can I come over?" Her tone shifted immediately, sensing the gravity in my voice. "Of course, dear. Come right over." 30 minutes later, I sat in their living room, recounting my conversation with Angela. As I spoke, I watched their faces shift from concern to shock to disbelief. When I finished, Robert leaned forward, his face hardening. "We can't let her go through with this," he said firmly. "This isn't just about the paternity test anymore. This is about the well-being of our grandchild." Linda nodded, her hand reaching out to squeeze mine. "We need to make her understand the gravity of the situation," she said. "This isn't a game. This is a life we're talking about." I let out a slow breath, a wave of relief washing over me. In the midst of all this chaos, at least I had some support. "Thank you," I said. "I was afraid you might take her side in all this." Robert shook his head, his expression stern. "We love our daughter," he said. "But we can't condone this behavior. We certainly can't let her make a decision like this out of spite or fear." Linda and Robert exchanged a long, silent look. After a moment, Robert cleared his throat. "There's something else you should know," he said, his voice heavy. "We were planning to give Angela a significant portion of our property and wealth as a gift for the child. It's a tradition in our family to provide for the next generation." I nodded, not quite sure where this was going. But Robert continued, "We won't be doing that unless she agrees to the paternity test and comes clean about everything. We can't, in good conscience, provide for a child whose parentage is in question, especially if Angela is considering alternatives. His words hit me hard. The gravity of what he was saying settled in. It wasn't just about money or property, it was about making Angela face the consequences of her actions. Forcing her to make the right choice, not just for me, but for the child. What do we do now? I asked, looking between Robert and Linda. We confront her, Linda said firmly. Together. She needs to understand that her actions don't just affect her or you, they affect all of us. And most importantly, they affect an innocent child. We made the decision to call Angela and ask her to come over. About an hour later, she arrived, her eyes red and puffy, her hand protectively cradling her swollen belly. When she saw me sitting with her parents, she froze in the doorway, her voice small and uncertain. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Sit down, Angela," Robert said gently, but his tone left no room for argument. Angela moved to the couch, sitting on the edge like she was ready to bolt at any moment. Linda took a deep breath, her voice steady. "Angela, honey, we know about the call you made to your husband. We know what you said about the baby." Angela's face crumpled, fresh tears spilling from her eyes. "You don't understand," she sobbed. "None of you understand what this is like." "Then help us understand," I said, my voice strained, trying to stay calm despite the turmoil inside me. "Help us understand why you'd threaten our child rather than take a simple test." "It's not simple," Angela cried, her voice rising. "It's not just a test. It's you not trusting me. Not believing in me. It's you thinking I could betray you like that." Robert leaned forward, his face serious. "Angela. Actions have consequences," Robert's voice cut through the thick silence, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the room. "Your refusal to take this test, your threats against the child, these actions have consequences too." Angela's face twisted in confusion, pain clouding her eyes. What did he mean? Her gaze darted from her mother to her father, then finally to me, as if searching for an answer in our eyes. "You're blackmailing me," she whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief. "We're trying to protect our grandchild, Angela." Robert's tone remained calm, but there was an undeniable firmness beneath it. "And we're trying to get you to do the right thing. Because right now, your behavior isn't just hurting your husband, it's hurting your child. And it's hurting this family." Angela's breathing became erratic, her chest rising and falling with panic as her eyes flicked around the room like a trapped animal. I could see the whirlwind of thoughts spinning in her mind, the calculations, the considerations. And then, like something snapped inside her, her shoulders sagged. A long, mournful wail escaped her, a sound so raw, so guttural, it seemed to come from the deepest part of her soul. She buried her face in her hands, her body shaking uncontrollably. We all sat there in stunned silence, helpless, watching as the woman we thought we knew unraveled before our eyes. It felt like an eternity before she finally raised her head. Her face was a mess of tears and smeared makeup, but her eyes, those eyes, held something darker. A resignation that struck me like a cold wind. "The baby," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's not yours." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Despite my suspicions, despite the little signs, hearing it from her lips, felt like the floor had just vanished beneath me. I was paralyzed, unable to speak, to even think clearly. I could only stare at her, the world around me spinning. "I'm so sorry," Angela continued, her words rushing out now, a torrent of guilt and shame. "I've been having an affair with Jonathan. It started before I even knew I was pregnant. I thought, I hoped, the baby was yours. But deep down, I knew. I knew it probably wasn't." The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. My gaze flicked to Robert and Linda, their faces mirroring my own shock and devastation. Angela sat there, broken, her tears never ceasing, as she faced the truth of what she'd done. "How could you?" I finally managed to croak, my voice sounding alien, distant. "How could you lie to me for so long? How could you let me believe this child was mine? Angela shook her head, as if she couldn't find the words to explain. I was scared, she whispered. I was ashamed. I thought, if I just pretended everything was normal, maybe it would be. Maybe it would all work out somehow. I could feel the bitterness in my chest. And Jonathan? The name tasted sour on my tongue. Does he know? Angela nodded miserably, her eyes lowering in shame. He knows. He wanted me to leave you, to be with him. But I couldn't. I loved you too much. Too much, or I thought I did. I don't know anymore. My chest tightened, the words stabbing deeper than I expected. I stood up abruptly, needing to move, to break the stillness that had settled over me like a heavy fog. I need some air, I muttered, heading for the door. The cool evening breeze hit my face as I stepped outside, offering a brief moment of clarity amidst the storm raging inside me. Everything I had feared, everything I had suspected, had turned out to be true. The life I thought I had, the future I had planned, it had all been built on a lie. I don't know how long I stood there, staring into nothingness, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. Then, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned, and there was Robert, his face drawn with pain. I'm so sorry, son, he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. We never wanted this for you. We never thought Angela would. His words trailed off, lost in the weight of what we were all facing. I looked at him, seeing the same pain, the same disappointment etched deeply into his face. What happens now? I asked, my voice hollow. Robert squeezed my shoulder, his grip solid and reassuring. That's up to you, he said. But know this, whatever you decide, Linda and I are here for you. Your family. No matter what. His words were a small comfort, a fragile anchor in the storm that was my life now. I nodded, unable to find the words as a lump formed in my throat. In the days that followed, I moved through life like a ghost. I filed for divorce, the paperwork feeling foreign in my hands. Angela made no attempt to fight it, retreating further into herself with every passing day. Jonathan vanished, slipping away from our lives, leaving Angela to face the consequences alone. I heard through mutual friends that he had moved out of state, as if escaping his part in this mess. As I signed the final divorce papers, I was flooded with conflicting emotions. There was sadness, of course, how could there not be? The life I had lost, the love I had thought was real. But there was also something else. A strange sense of relief, as if a weight had been lifted. The truth, painful as it was, had finally come to light. I knew the road ahead would be long. The wounds Angela had inflicted would take time to heal, if they ever could. But as I walked out of the lawyer's office, a sliver of hope flickered in my chest. This was an ending, yes. But it was also a beginning. A chance to rebuild, to find peace, to start over. To build a life based on honesty and trust. As I stepped out into the sunlight, I took a deep breath. It was as if I could finally breathe for the first time in months. The future was uncertain. But it was mine to shape. And for now, that was enough.